What's up, everybody? Today you're going to learn how to build this little 2-inch Cinewhoop. This is the Itsy Spydr with an O3 air unit, and like most of my build logs, we're going to do thoughts and opinions first and then the build log second. So I've been able to fly this thing a good handful of times, and this thing's a lot of fun. It's a little ripper. I didn't expect a little 2-inch Cinewhoop to actually be as fun and agile as it is. And it's a Cinewhoop. It doesn't have a little X frame on it, which I know they make those for 2 and 3 inch. This thing is quick. It's nimble. It seems quite light. And the weight with this, the O3 air unit and my 850 battery, is right at 185 grams. And if I'm trying to be FAA compliant, because I do want to use this for business, and I put a remote ID dongle on there, 195 grams. So we're still well under the 250 gram limit. If I put a 550 battery, we're right around 160 grams. And this is a 3S built quad right here. So you're going to see in the video that I will link you to this frame right here, and this is actually their version 1 frame. They've just upgraded to a version 2. It only costs like $6 more. So it's still the same, just with some minor improvements, okay? But yeah, so let's talk about this. We got the power plant on the bottom on the inside there. That is the new SpeedyB all-in-one board. Okay, it's like $45 or $50. It's a no-brainer, okay? It's got UARTs on it too, because I do have GPS on this as well. Why would you put GPS on a 2-inch? Because I'm trying to use it for business, and just in case I'm flying some event, which I'm just like manifesting at this point in time, and I'm flying over water or something, a disconnection happens, I want it to not like fall into the drink, okay? So, but with all of this, GPS, the remote ID, and a big ass battery, 195 grams, no brainer, okay? So also I'm trying to eliminate needing a naked GoPro or something. So I'm trying to fly with only the O3 air unit and recording on it. So far I've been getting good footage, and I think for right now, we're gonna stick with that, and that is what's helped keeping the weight down. Now, I use the RC and Power motors that you can see right here. These are 10,000 kV, and these are, I don't know what these are. I remember like 1003s right here. Right, there's a lot of stuff that went into this, okay? With that being said, I'm getting some pretty decent flight times just ripping around, right around 4.5 to 5 minutes. So if I was supposed to slow this down and do real smooth cinematic flying, I can definitely get more because I'm not ripping as hard. So I haven't tested that yet. But aside from that, once you start to get into the build log, everything is pretty solid. I've edited it up well for you. I would probably not put the prop guards on first like I do in the beginning, and this is already addressed. I would just do what you normally do, yeah? Screw on the motors, put the electronics into the center, start to do the basic soldering, and then go through the assembly. But you should probably watch the entire video first before you start to follow along anyways, okay? And you're gonna learn all of that. But I have never been happier with a small drone. Now I've got the Pavo 25 over there, which I've been using for some real estate stuff. It's smooth, it's a little bit heavier. I've tried to fly it hard. It's not nearly as nimble as this, but maybe that's because I still keep it bogged down with a naked GoPro, and I really just use it for trying to fly real estate and smooth cinematic stuff. Maybe I need to upgrade to a lighter frame, and that'll make it a little more nimble. Who knows? Anyways, this has been a really fun build. I'm really excited to deliver more content and videos for you here in the future. And with that being said, enjoy the build log and comment down below if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. All right, everybody, welcome to my 2-inch Cinewhoop build log. That's exactly what we got. We're going to go through all the parts and then get right into it. This is the frame we're going to be using. It's the Itsy Spydr. This was recommended to me by TronCat. If you don't follow his channel, he does a lot of great Cinewhoop and real estate drone tour type of stuff. And I asked him what a good 2-inch was, and this is the one that he recommended. So they actually have a V2 coming out pretty soon, so you know this may not even be a relevant build, but it's always fun to see how they're going to be built here. Also, Chris Rosser has some really nice carbon fiber frames that came out recently. This was right around the $35 mark, where his are more around like $70, $80. So if you know price is an issue, this could be a more budget-friendly alternative. But super lightweight, super teeny right here. You got a nice little cutout down here at the bottom that's going to hold the ESC, the all-in-one board, and we're going to take a look at that. We got all of our components here, but we'll look at this closer as we start to assemble the frame. We've also got some different TPU bits that were printed out, and we'll see how all of that comes together. For the brains here, I am using the new SpeedyB all-in-one. It's an F405. 40 amps per ESC, and it has 4 additional UARTs, which is really nice. So if you want to put GPS on, which I'm going to, or any additional whatevers, you have that option. And this is great. This thing's like 65 bucks. They give you a practice solder board, as you see right here. You've got an extension right here. So here's the USB if you want to plug in directly to it. But if you have the access is weird, you can actually solder on a cable, and this is like a USB extension, so you can get it outside of the Cinewhoop. You've got a little expander board over here, so you can attach one of the 5-volt or 9-volt pads to this and attach more things like LEDs or whatnot. And then you've got a back board included too. All of that for 65 bucks. We'll look closer at this right before I install it, but it's really nice. It's got the heat sinks on both sides, and then if you really wanted to save weight, it is possible to remove the heat sinks to save a few additional grams in weight. And then we got the motors down here, which are always the fun, exciting thing. Okay, these are the RC and powers. Let me zoom in just a little bit. Boom, because these things are itty bitty, smaller than a dime. This is a 1004 motor. Yes, 10,000 kV. Okay, so it's small and teeny. This one has the connector on the end. I'm gonna have to depin it and then strip it. In their build video, they just keep the little metal attachments on and solder directly to the board. I'm gonna pull it off just because I want to. Yeah, so we got 4 of these, really nice. And that is one of the things that I did slightly different than Itsy, or whatever the name of their brand is, their build. It was a 2S build. I messed up and I ended up getting this one right here, and this is a 3S minimum ESC, so I had to bump everything up. So hopefully the higher KV matches what they recommend for a 2S build, and I still get the same performance and efficiency. And we've got our GPS right here. I've got the Flywoo Goku. This is a nano. It's super teeny. It's light. Okay, and it's just got, doesn't have a compass in it. I didn't need it. I just want like it's going to be backup. But because I am using this, or I intend to use this for business, I might be flying over water or something, and I'm going to want GPS rescue to work. We got Happy Model. ELRS, yeah, that's going to work fine. We got the DJI O3 air unit right here, which is great because I want to do recording with the O3 air unit, so I'm also going to be testing if I can just use this as my main camera without having to strap on a naked GoPro to keep everything under the 250 gram limit. We got a wide variety of batteries down here. Most of them are race day quads, from 550 up to 720 on this side, and I believe this is an 850, yep. And this is an 850. They're all high voltage. I didn't know which one was going to give me the best flight performance, so I just bought a widespread, and then we're going to figure that out over time as to which one is the best. And then last but not least, we got some small gym fan props right here. Okay, so we're ready to start doing the motors and the ESC, and I'm looking at this whole process, and I'm starting to feel like I don't really want to do the electronics like this, right? And luckily my piece came pre-assembled, so this is just the way it is. But I think what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take the prop guard piece back off, because then I have to like get in here and it's just going to be tight, and I got to like solder down on an angle, right? Like that just doesn't make sense to me for all of the drones that I built, which is not a lot. So I think if I was going to redo this whole video, which I'm not going to, but I will put that in the description, is I probably would have just started with the base plate here where everything mounts, right? Put the motors on, solder them to the board, put on your, XT connector and your capacitor and all of those other things, and then put the next piece on, and then build the camera cage, and then put everything together, right? Doesn't that make more sense? So time to get to assembly here. My frame kind of came pre-assembled. These two pieces in the original video were not connected. This one came connected out of the bag. Yay for me. We got some teeny ass screws over here. So if you don't have one of these like magnifying glasses or something like this, I love these. I can put a link down below because I am blind and nearsighted, and this is some small stuff. So it looks like after you get this part done, right, now we're going to work on the camera cage, which is over here. And what's kind of annoying about their video, the original video on the Spydr site, is he just puts text on screen, doesn't verbally narrate anything, so you kind of got to watch and hope that you're doing it right, etc., etc. So the first piece is going to be this TPU, and there's two sides to the TPU. So I don't know if you can see this, but there's a bit that's going to be a raised side. Otherwise, this is the perfectly flat side that would be printed directly onto the bed. So it looks like you're going to have the raised side facing up, and then this part of the camera cage is going to lay on top of it. And when you do that, what you'll notice is there's actually a little bit of space here on the bottom side between the TPU and the carbon fiber piece. Okay, that looks and appears to be the correct direction. And then we're going to put two screws in on the right and on the left, lower right, lower left here with these small little 6mm screws. This is going to go up through on each side, and then you've got these nylon standoffs. So you're just going to screw this right into the TPU. And the threads will grip that, yeah, and then we can put the little carbon fiber piece on top and just make sure that all the other holes line up, which it does, yes. And then you can take the standoff over here and screw that on by hand for right now, and that makes a nice little sandwich there. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. And I might just give it a couple more twists for good measure. Yep, on each side so it's locked in. Yeah, and then that looks a little bit better. Yeah, the screws down here are nested in nicely, standoffs are on top, but we'll see as I work my way through this. Now the next step is going to be attaching these two little pieces right here, these little triangular pieces. These are probably going to hold the camera is my assumption here. Okay, so they're basically a mirror image of them, but you've got one side, if we look at it directly like this, yes, which kind of has a little kick out over here, and then you have this flat side, the side that has been printed to the bed, okay? And then there's also a flat edge, if this was a triangle, yeah, this would be the bottom piece. So it's gonna sit like this, downward, if that makes sense, with the flat side to the outside. Does that make sense? So I'm gonna bring this down here, the front two holes that are here, this is gonna screw in, and then it's gonna look something like this once I screw it in. Now we've got these teeny ass screws over here. We got two types, okay? So we've got this one right here, which I believe is the right one. Yep. I mean, they both look very similar. They're about the same length. It's kind of annoying because they didn't come in separate bags for me actually. But one is just a little bit shorter and a little bit longer. This one's a little bit more of a pan head. It is actually a Phillips, where this one has the normal hex mount like I've been using. So I think in his video he's using a little Phillips with this one, so that's the one I'm going to go for. Probably should be fine, and it has a deeper recession in here in the TPU for the head of it, so I'm assuming those are right. So I'm just going to put this screw right up into one of the holes, get it started, probably about right. And then I'm going to take this one, which goes on the right side, and there's a teeny hole there for it. Put that right on top. First one's on there. Yeah, it actually feels on there kind of secure for the amount of threads that are going into the TPU, so hopefully once everything gets sandwiched together, it's even stronger. Let's do the other side. Actually, I did that backwards. Remember how I was telling you that the flat side is supposed to be to the outsides left and right? Yeah, I didn't do that right. You can see that right here on the top. Yeah. So how it has this kick out, that should be facing inside. So I'm going to swap this over. All right, so I got those two put together now properly in the right order, facing the right direction. Yes, flat sides to the outside with the bottom flat piece towards the bottom here of the cage as of right now. Let's move on to the next step. So next we're going to look at the battery holder, which is right here, and they've got these included O-rings that are going to come with it so that you can put them over and then kind of strap the battery like this, if that makes sense. Yes. So what you're going to do, and they've included this little Dremel tool, which looks like a sander. They want you just to kind of round off the edges over here, just to make sure that as you're putting it on and off, that this doesn't cut into the edge of the O-rings. So I guess that's what I'm going to do, is just kind of come through with this diamond grit here. I'm going to do it over a trash can, obviously, and just round off the edges on both sides, sand it down so it doesn't cut into the O-rings. Now that we got that done, you can actually put some of the O-rings on here. And then we're going to kind of line this up and get ready for the O3 air unit, right? I don't know how much stretch these really have, and I didn't really like test out, but I think these longer batteries are going to fit, right? A 3S is obviously going to be a little bit larger than a 2S, but is it going to fit inside of here easily, or will I need to go with more of like, you know, a battery strap, right? And that's pretty tight. I mean, me holding it right there, and that's a pretty solid O-ring that's in there. So I don't know. I mean, I'm going to try this out and see what happens. If it doesn't go in easily, or it's a real pain in the ass to get the battery on there every time, maybe I'll just cut them off because I got extras and call it a day. I am a little bit worried about this one. So if you get more of like a fat brick kind of battery like I did this one right here, I don't think this is going to stretch all the way around. I'm not even going to waste my time. So I might have to come back and use a battery strap. I did get one somewhere around here. Yeah, from Race Day Quad. So I don't know. We may have to switch over to something like this. But we'll figure that out towards the end. At any rate, this piece is going to go on top of this part, which is the top part of the camera cage. And in turn, that is going to lay on top in this direction. That makes sense. So eventually, once we get there, we're going to sandwich everything together just like this, and you're going to see how all the holes start to line up. But we're going to open up or pull out a couple of screws on the O3 air unit right now. And then I also forgot I had these ordered too, because they have these different types of antennas instead of the lollipop that's going to come with the O3 unit. I'll show you that here in just a second. So we've got the air unit here. We're going to remove all 4 of these screws. While I've got this off, I'm going to take off this little lollipop antenna and swap on these 2 pieces over here, and they're going to be in a crossing pattern, one to the left, one to the right, respectively, on a diagonal. And then we're just going to put this piece right back on, which kind of holds the antennas in place. So screws are out, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, I pulled the old antenna off, put these new ones on, right? I have them crossed over like so. And then we're just gonna put this component right back on top. So now we got that ready. Now we're gonna take the battery tray that is going to fit on top of this. We're gonna make one big sandwich. And you're gonna place that on top of the air unit here. And then we've got these silver screws or bolt or what have you. Yes, they have a Phillips head in them, and there's either long ones or short ones. If you're going for the full-size air unit, you're going to use the longer ones. If you're stripping this down for a naked, which is totally possible, you would use the shorter version of these ones right here. Just slow and steady, get all your screws started and almost tightened. And once everything looks right here good, then we can come back and tighten everything down. And there's actually just a little bit of space here if I wanted to get a battery strap through at a later point, but shouldn't be that big of an issue just to loosen some of these screws and fish one underneath, which is what I'll probably end up doing anyways. All right, Brandon from the future, I did make one quick change here before you start to go through this section. Yes, one, just go ahead and depin the yellow wire or the S-bus wire if you're not going to use it. Just save yourself the hassle of having to go back and pull it in and out. And then when you wire these antennas, if you happen to be using these, put them through this little hook here instead of out through the sides. That'll save you some time of going back and doing that. And then these are still a little bit long. It looks like I got like ant antennas or something like that, but we're going to rock them. Probably something a little bit shorter wouldn't hurt. So now we're going to take these two components and put them together like so here. Yes, we got 2 screws that are going to go into our standoffs, just like we did at the very beginning. 2 screws that are going to go up here into the front part of the mount, like we did at the beginning. And now's a good time to, these are a little bit long in my opinion right now, but I don't know, I'm going to rock them for right now. But now's a good time to fish these through the sides here, so they poke out the side and they don't stay like that. I'm going to leave this for right now. Obviously, we don't really need the S-bus wire here on this harness, so you should clip that if you're not using S-bus or depin it. Usually I just pull it out of the entire harness. I probably still have access to pulling this out and pushing it back in, and I'll do that at a later point in time, but I'll address that if that's an issue later on in the video. So now this is where we're at so far right here, and we're just ready to mount the camera itself. So the camera wire is going to go underneath the body here and in between these two mounts, and then you'll decide whether you want it forwards or backwards, up to you, and you'll use the included screws that were in the side of the O3 camera. And then this wire, the VTX wire, is just going to come underneath the back, and this is going to plug into the flight controller or the all-in-one stack here shortly. So all I have to do is just mount this up loosely, and then we're going to move on to the next step. And as a side note, as I look at this, you've got 2 mounting holes, a rear and a forward, and on the O3 you've got a top and a bottom. I'm probably going to mount it in the forwardmost hole and the top hole. That way I have some room to do some up tilt with this. So now that we got this done, this is pretty good. I'm going to make a couple quick changes here, especially to the antennas. So I fished it through the sides here, and maybe if I had slightly shorter antennas, that would have been good. But I'm going to pull them back out and then fish them through this little hook that's up here. This will prop them up higher, and the length I'm going to work with it right now and see if it annoys me. These things are cheap. You can always order more. But this will keep it up a little bit higher, because once we start to put the components together, just to help visualize everything, this stack will go on top. Right, you can see the antennas are kind of drooping downwards towards the props, a little too close for comfort in my opinion, but otherwise everything looks good. So I'm going to fix this, and then now we can move on to putting the all-in-one in and start soldering. Okay, so we're ready to start doing the motors and the ESC, and I'm looking at this whole process, and I'm starting to feel like I don't really want to do the electronics like this, right? And luckily my piece came pre-assembled, so this is just the way it is. But I think what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take the prop guard piece back off, because then I have to like get in here and it's just going to be tight, and I got to like solder down on an angle, right? Like that just doesn't make sense to me for all of the drones that I built, which is not a lot. So I think if I was going to redo this whole video, which I'm not going to, but I will put that in the description, is I probably would have just started with the base plate here where everything mounts, right? Put the motors on, solder them to the board, put on your, XT connector and your capacitor and all of those other things, and then put the next piece on, and then build the camera cage, and then put everything together, right? Doesn't that make more sense? So we're going to deviate here. I will put that in, but I think I'm going to take this prop guard piece off, right? There's only, what, 8 screws here at most. And then I'm going to solder everything, and then we're going to put it back together. That just makes more sense to me, because then I have more space and clearance and everything to get to my all-in-one controller. So first things first now then, we're going to start to put the motors on, and then I'm going to use the included screws that they have here for the motors. So 1 down, 3 to go. So now that we got the motors on, now we get to figure out where we want the all-in-one board to be at. So it's not going to fit on here perfectly forward in that sense. It is going to have a 45-degree turn, which is fine because now the motor wires are coming down towards the motor pads. The question is what direction? Now, if we leave it like this and we have the mini USB port poking out towards motor 1, 2, 3 in that direction, we might have some access through the side right here, but it's going to be tight. The props might be in the way. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to use the extension, because the USB does have a little extension piece that you can attach to it and solder and you know, zip tie it somewhere outside or a little bit further out. So I might do that. I'm not quite there yet. Haven't decided yet, but it would be nice to have that accessible. Then we also got to decide, where do you want the capacitor to go? Am I going to actually try and solder it to the board? Because there isn't really a whole lot of space between the top of the controller and once we sandwich on the camera cage and everything like this. So once again, am I going to try and bend it and just make it fit in here somewhere? Or am I just going to solder it to some wires and then, you know, zip tie it somewhere else within this cage? That's some things we got to figure out. But for right now, I'm going to put the bolts in for the stack, put the nuts on them, and then we'll kind of start figuring some things out. If you don't have a solder pen, these are great too. You just shake them up and, you know, just kind of rub it all over the board and just go through and pre-tin everything. I'm going to do the motor pads. I'm going to do pretty much everything, I think, here. We're going to do the motor pads, top and bottom. I think I'm going to solder on the USB extension cord cable, which is over here, so that I have that, and, you know, I'll just zip tie it off to the side in case I want to use it. But, you know, once I get this thing all soldered and inserted, I'm not going to want to go back and do anything. So that's what we're going to do. And I got my little helper hands, and I think one of the nice things about the heatsink here is that I could actually just clamp onto it versus trying to have to be careful of the different components. So that might make it a little bit easier. Snap, crackle, and pop. All right, so we got everything tinned up. It's all right. These teeny pads over here are real. They're the bane of my existence here. The ones for the GPS and the receiver. Those need a little bit of work, but we'll work on that. Bottom side's actually not too bad, especially when it came to this side over here. Oh, this is this side. This side where we're going to put in the USB extension cord. So now I'm just going to work on getting those all, you know, pre-tinned and soldered up here, and then we'll see what the next steps are. All right, so now we got the USB extension soldered on. I've got the wiring for the GPS and then the receiver here. These smaller pads are a pain in the ass, but magnifying glasses help, and a little flux is never a bad idea. I'm going to clean this all up later. But yeah, so that works. Sorry, I couldn't record it step by step. Just keep in mind that when you solder on the transmitter, the TX and the RX, from the receiver, it goes, the T goes to the R and the R goes to the T on these pads, so they always are crossing as you're soldering on there. But these look good so far. I already tested the USB extension cord. That works, and this fired up and connected to Betaflight. So all we have to do now are just the motor pads, and then give it a little cleaning with some alcohol. And I'm half tempted to glaze some of this with conformal coating, which I probably will do. So I think I'm just going to lay this onto this part right here, and we'll solder up the motor wires, unscrew 2 of them, do a little conformal coating. I always use this MG Chemicals, which is my favorite. You know, just glaze it once or twice, top and bottom, and then we should be almost wrapped up. Now we're on to motors. I got the XT30 put on. I made a little extension for the capacitor so we can push this out of the way, left, right, up, and down, depending on once I put the camera on top. So yeah, motors next. All right, so we're in the home stretch now. All the motors are soldered. Everything's hooked up. It's time to, you know, give it a power test, make sure everything works before I come back and clean it off and then put any conformal coating, all of that stuff before you button it up, because that's annoying to have to take it all apart. So that's exactly what we're going to do. Always recommend having a smoke stopper right here just in case anything shorts, but we know that the USB port worked, and we're just going to make sure that the camera's getting power and that the GPS turns on, and that the receiver, all of that good stuff. All right, cross your fingers, make sure no magic smoke comes out. Okay, good. Looks like the GPS is powering up. Probably won't find signal here. Receiver's blinking. That's always a good sign. And then let me see what we got over here. We got a green light over here. Let me see if I can bind this with my goggles really quick. And the air unit is working. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see into my goggles or if that's going to focus, but you know, moving the camera around, you can see it kind of twisting and turning. So, yep, that's a good sign. And the receiver's in pairing, so I can probably pair to that, so we're good. So now, like I said, I'm going to clean this down with a little bit of rubbing alcohol, glaze whatever's open with a little bit of conformal coating, and then we'll finish and wrap up. Okay, so we've got everything pretty much buttoned up and done. I made a few changes here, but we'll take a look at this here closely. Obviously, I switched the strap on the top. I'm going to need this. I'd obviously need something a little bit smaller, but this will work for now. There's just enough Velcro to latch on. Underneath here, you can see I've got the capacitor that was on a little bit of a lead. That's off to the left side, and then I tucked it in here, and I've used a couple of zip ties. I also have the USB extension coming out the side. I'm just leaving it hooked on here until I get everything dialed in, and then I will pull this off, and then just this little harness here will be hanging out. On the back side here where the GPS is at, I just need to get a little bit of Velcro, and then I can Velcro it right here onto the back, and then if I want to keep it here all the time, I can, or I can just leave this dangling off if I want it to be just a little bit lighter. Like I said, the antennas at the top are really long, but they work. So the next thing we're going to do here is just plug this into Betaflight, put a basic tune on it, and then test it out and see how it flies. So let's look at total weight. We've got everything here with the battery strap, the GPS, etc. 119 grams, just the quad by itself. If this is my heaviest battery, an 850, we're looking at 185. The smallest battery I've got right now is a 550, which is 160. And then if we're trying to do this right and legal, and I've got a GPS tracker, what is this thing? Remote ID, that stupid thing. Let's put that on there. We're at 174 grams with the smallest battery. And with my largest battery, 198 grams. So we still have plenty of wiggle room under that 250 gram mark right there before anything else needs to happen. But that is pretty amazing right there. When I fly the 850, it is a little bit heavy, but it's still very responsive, and I'm not pushing it. Now we're going to hop into Betaflight. This is not going to be a full Betaflight tuning lesson because I am not the best, and I've actually already gone through this. So I'm just going to show you some of the different things that I have changed that might help you. So you can see right now if I tilt it forwards, backwards, left, right. Okay, the accelerometer is calibrated here, and I'm just going to go through some of these different tabs. So the ports, I'm going to click on this. There's a couple that you're going to have to change, which is surprising that this wasn't already enabled off of the regular flight controller, but that's okay. So enable MSP on UART3. Okay, this is going to allow you to get the information on your OSD. And then UART6 is where if you're using an ELRS receiver or something external, you're going to switch that here. Okay, I have GPS on mine, which I put on UART number 5, and you can see that for the sensor input here. And then in conjunction with UART3 and turning on MSP, you'll come over here for peripherals and enable this as well. Then you'll save and reboot. Then we move down to configuration. There really isn't anything that I changed right here. GPS, you can toggle it on or off. Right now I've just been keeping it off, though. That way I can just fly and test the quad, not needing to wait for a lock. But actually I'm going to start turning this back on because this thing flies quick and it's fast, and I want to see how fast and how quick it's actually flying. And GPS is good for that. So we'll just reset that. So we'll actually do that in real time. But GPS rescue definitely works and everything like that, and we can set that up here too. Power and battery, because I use high voltage, the lithium-ion HVs. Okay, your max cell voltage, you might want to bump this up to 4.35. I actually needed to bump it up to 4.4 so that it would recognize my cells as, 3S, especially when they were lower too, right? So I would plug it in, and because the voltage was over 4.35, it thought that it was actually a 4S battery instead of a 3S, which was annoying. So this is always important to remember, especially if you fly high voltage. Fail safe, if you're going to use that, right, it's drop. Now that I just re-enabled GPS, I do GPS rescue right here. I'm just going to keep all of this stock for right now. It doesn't really matter. Good, we'll save and reboot that. And then I'm going to have to remember what switch my GPS rescue is. I think it's on 2. So presets, I didn't do any presets except for this one, the OSD for FPV WTF, because I have just the goggles V2, the old ones, but these work for the newest one. So you can add this here, and then when you do that, you'll come in here and you're going to set, use DisplayPort 3 like this, and then you'll apply it, and that'll make everything happen. Okay. which is great. And we'll talk about presets and PID tuning. So PID tuning, we're going to come back to this section at the very end, okay? The receiver, come over here, I have ELRS, everything was enabled, okay, and I'm using a Radio Master Zorro here, so this works and all of the switches work. Modes, come over here, you're going to set all of your different switches, arming, angle, beeper. So for me, I have the Radio Master Zorro, and it has 2 switches, like not even switches, intermittent buttons or whatever. So I have one on the left and right. So I always use these aux 6 and 5. So that way, if I lose the drone, I can just make it go beep, 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 and I can press it and I don't have to hold the switch up and down. It's really convenient. And on that back end, I use a pre-arm switch as well, which is going to be these exact same buttons right here. And I'm going to show you this right down here. I recommend it because if you're carrying your quad, which is easy, sometimes it's easy just to hit the arm switch and you don't want to like, you know, chop your fingers off, okay? So I use the same beeping aux 5 and 6, and basically it goes beep, 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 beep while I flip the arm switch, and then the quad turns on. It's really convenient because not only is it beeping a lot if there happens to be somebody around to like get out of the way, but it also knows that I've got an auditory cue that I'm about to arm the quad. Flip over crash works. Let's see if GPS rescue is around here somewhere. I think we passed it, coming down. Now that it's enabled, right here, GPS rescue, add range. I believe I am on switch number 2 is what that is, and I'm going to slide it all the way to the right. Come on, boom. That way I can just flip it. So my arm switch is, let's see what it says. Yeah, arm switch is number 1, which is on the lower left. Okay, so my GPS rescue is on the lower right. And usually what I do as well with angle mode is that I put, you can see right here, actually, aux 2. So at the same time that I flip GPS rescue, angle mode is turned on, just in case I'm not far enough away from the home point for GPS rescue to enable. At least if I flip it up, I get angle mode at the same time, and I can punch up, and at least it's balanced out if I'm freaking out, right? GPS rescue is great if you get disoriented, not just because you think you've lost a connection. You're like, oh shit, I don't know how to right myself. GPS rescue, boom, it'll right you, just like angle mode would if you were like in a weird thing. So that's always fun to have there. So I'm just gonna save that. Food for thought. Okay, save. Okay, great. Adjustments, great. GPS, motors, all the number stuff, props out, so you want to switch it so its motor direction is reversed. I'm using the SpeedyB controller, which offers bidirectional D-shot, great. OSD, I like having all of my different crap up here. Okay, so speed, individual cell voltage, the pack as a whole, how many milliamps I've used, what is my amp draw, things of that nature, longitude, latitude for GPS, just in case you're using it or whatever. Okay, so let's go back to PID tuning. Okay, and I want to show you a couple things which are actually interesting. So I changed some of the stuff. I don't know anything about tuning, okay, so I'm just copying them. So if you go over to the Itsy site, okay, dronetheory.co, boom, here's the frame that I used in the build. And remember at the very beginning of the video, I told you that they have a new V2 version coming out. It's actually already done. Okay, so you can click this link right here. Oh, actually, no, we're going to do that together. And now you can buy their newest frame. So I think they got the page up. They just haven't loaded in. It's for sale yet, but it's only going to be $42, so another $6. So there's been some minor improvements. Now you can use different motors, whether it's 3 or 4 mounts. I think they got it a little more organized. They made the frame just a little bit thicker. There's some nice things that are actually here. So yay, that's a win for you, but my build log still holds true. With that, there's going to be a link here to tuning on their site, where you can just copy and paste. So even though I did a 3S build versus the 2S, right now I have copied and pasted all of these PID tuning settings into Betaflight. And based on my first few flights, this thing is quick. I can't believe how fun this little 2-inch is. And I bought it for real estate to do like, you know, cinematic flying and smooth, but this thing rips. It's fast, it's quick, it's fun, especially for a 2-inch. I am very, very impressed. And I've been shooting little gaps and like, you know, getting more confident. But because I do want to use it for real estate, I'm trying not to bash the shit out of it, you know, and destroy it either. But whatever these are, these seem to be working right now. It is quick, it is responsive. So you're just going to copy and paste all of that stuff right into Betaflight right here. And you do it right here for the PID profiles. You can come over here to the filter settings, copy and paste it, just follow. It's really easy. The rate profile, I just bumped it up the other day because I was trying to do some more freestyle type of stuff. So I bumped it up to 80/80 and up the max rate. Still not quick enough, probably for the center sensitivity. I need to book this up to like 150 or something like that. But if you're looking for something smooth, cinematic, but still freestyly, this is a good start. If we go back to profile number 2, I feel like I probably didn't change it. Okay, I need to bump it down. So we need to make some small changes. Actually, I know where I screwed up. I changed the rate, but I didn't actually change the actual rate profile. There we go. Okay, so having said that, that's it for tuning, and hopefully you enjoyed the video. Tag me if you build it or make any videos.